Hey guys, this is my first real attempt at Narrandera Remains, which is the new multiplayer dungeon. Really huge rewards here. It's awesome. If you can even just beat one boss, it's great. But if you can get a group that can pass this, it's even better. So I'm able to do a really full attempt here. So I'm going to try and lay out things that will be helpful for you guys to be able to pass as much as possible. You know, I'm definitely a really overpowered player, so it's not a great perspective, but I think you can definitely do it with a slightly weaker team than my own. So here there's a bunch of flames that can hurt you, and I fail at going through them some comical number of times. Really it helps to be closer to the right than where I am at first, and so you get a little closer, and it's easier to get through. But at first we go on a non-attempt, so none of us can gain rewards at the moment, and so we just go and strike the first boss. It's sort of like Elemental Forest, that one boss is a light boss that is immune to magical attack, and then the other one is a dark boss that's immune to physical attack. And all we wanted to make sure is that our group was going to be split into two groups that were relatively even. We wanted to avoid having Robin and myself, who are much stronger, on the same team, and then you know, and if Robin and I are together, then of course Midori and Shock would have been together, and that turned out to be a good decision. But we lucked out, and it turns out that Shock and I got paired together, which is nice because we're a couple, so we can use our rings together. And then Robin and Midori are also a couple, and so they got paired together, and that's very nice. And so we just individually kicked people out, and then invited them back in. And so everybody has their attempt now, and we can get rewards. And so that's something you can do if you have a team that you really want to be careful about how to spread out your the power between your players. That's definitely the way to go. It's a little bit annoying because it takes a really long time for these bosses to buff up and to kill you. So you might want to drop your light and dark res a little bit if you have a strong team that these bosses can't kill easily. But that said, so this is sort of like Elemental Forest in the first boss. The water boss is in Elemental Forest. So you do need to kill these guys at the same time. So basically all we did, especially because Robin and I can deal damage very similarly, so we just sort of waited it out and waited to go to Sylph mode, and then we just bombed them in Sylph mode. We didn't even really go out of our way to time it very carefully. Definitely if you have a team that doesn't deal quite as much damage, it might help to be on like TeamSpeak or Raid Call or something like that, and you can time it a little bit more carefully. But yeah, so our bar is at the top for the magic immune or the light boss, and then we can also see how the other side of our team is doing against the physical one. So that's relatively straightforward, not as bad. I think a lot of groups can manage to get these rewards if they build up their light and dark resistance. You know, as long as you have a really good set of crystals, you should be okay. A good chunk of HP, I think you can fiddle around with it and kind of coordinate. It will, you know, it might take a little bit of effort with coordination and getting used to that. It's a little bit harder than the Elemental Forest bosses because you can't see what the other side of the team is doing, so you can't react as nicely with them. Alright, and so for the second floor we get split into two sections. Shock and I are in a fire section, and so the mobs and the boss deal fire damage, so we adjust our crystals so that we have fire resistance. And then Robin and Midori are in a section that is cold, so I guess we're in hell, and then they're in hell frozen over or something like that. But anyway, so Midori and Robin are building up their water resistance. Got some nice rewards there. So even for the mobs, giving quite a bit. But those 200 hammers and stoves from the first boss and all of the bosses afterwards are the really big rewards. So these mobs aren't too bad. If you have a team that's, you know, closer to like, I don't know what it would be now, like 1.4 million or something, these mobs might hurt a little bit more. You have to be a little bit careful, but at least for us, it's totally fine. And same for Midori and Robin on the water side of things. So So this boss I thought might have needed a Fury, but I don't think I ended up using it, to be perfectly honest. I think there's a chaos, but it can't be dispelled. And so for the second boss, you don't have to kill them at the same time. So we don't have to time it so that they die within one turn of each other. So as long as we beat the boss and the other side beats the water boss, we're totally okay. That said, I think Robin and Midori struggled a little bit. The water boss, I think, might do a couple of nasty things, like an amnesia, and I don't think it stuns though. But the boss that we're fighting, the fire boss, will do a chaos, and he'll do, I think, a stun at some point. So yeah, Shock's still taking quite a bit of damage. I have, a full set of fire crystals on, and I still take a good chunk of damage. So this will definitely give some trouble to teams that don't have a pretty OP player. You definitely probably want somebody over 2 million. Shock's right at the cusp of 2 million, and I think she and somebody else right around 2 million won't struggle with this. I mean, they'll manage just fine, but when I'm around, it's a little bit easier. So relatively straightforward. The chaos is a little bit problematic, but I think Shock has dark resistance on, so if I hit her, it's not going to be too problematic. The chaos is for 2 turns, so if I have it on, and I'll just do whatever attack I have with the dark sylph, and then do like a rune or something, or hit my ring or something like that, and it'll go away. So not too bad there. If you're struggling, there might be debuffs that you need to look out for, so the mages should bring a Fury. Honestly, I think you should try to have a mage on each side. It's really difficult, I think, to get through this without one. If you don't have a mage, I think the BR requirement goes up for the players who don't have one. So in that case, it ended up that Robin and Midori, I think, had a little bit of a struggle. I think their skills were off or something, and so they died. So I just zipped through this one because it's basically the same idea. ShockandAwe beat it, and Midori and Robin were more successful the second time around. So same rewards as the first boss, 5 million gold, and then the whole, Red Holy Forge, all of the stuff for the red gear upgrades. It's very, very nice. So now I'm setting up for the 3rd floor, getting big time wind resistance. I have tons of wind resistance right now because I'm, building up for class wars. So I have some dimensions and stuff like that. And I almost missed my chest before. So once you've adjusted for all the wind resistance, which you're really going to want here, these mobs are genuinely, at least if you talk to Robin, Midori, and Shock, they will easily say that this is the hardest part of the MP. I didn't struggle with them at all, but again, it's unrealistic because I have so much wind resistance. If I had, only like 700 wind resistance, this would even be difficult for me, or at least it would hurt a lot more. So what players can do with, more like full wind resistance crystals, but maybe not as many dimensions as I have or whatever, what you can do is Lala recommended that I just die basically, and so just build up your Sylph Awakening, and then once you awaken, once you've built up your awakening, go straight into the fight and just Sylph and blow them away with your Sylph. So you're obviously going to want probably either a wind pet, dark pet, or a light pet, something with a lot of big AoEs, so that you can take out the mob as quickly as possible. But in this case, I have so much wind resistance that I'm okay. Also, most of this dungeon hits front attack. So if you're really struggling here, you can actually move your tune to the back. So I did that for Robin and Midori. Well, actually, Shock ended up being the leader of the group eventually, but had them move to the back row and have their U-demons in the front, and so their U-demons were taking a bunch of the damage at first, so they had more time to deal some damage, get into Sylph mode. But even so, I don't think Midori and Robin successfully made it through these mobs. I think they could have done it. I think they could have figured it out. They could have potted up or something like that. but it just didn't work out. And you can see the rewards from this. Those mobs are so difficult, and yet the mobs are the rewards are way worse than they were on level 2. So I ended up coming in and helping Midori and Robin with these mobs. It's kind of nice that you can go on each side, on the other side. So they started on one side of the dungeon, or one side of the floor, and Shock and I started on the other, and you just sort of are supposed to meet in the middle. But turns out you can just sort of bypass the boss and then go help each other. So if you're really struggling, if you have at least one side that can beat the mobs, then you can go wiggle around and go help each other. You can probably skip around the mobs if you're really careful, but that might be a little bit tough depending on how easy it is to wiggle around. Some people said you can only do that from one side, so whatever it is, you know, give it a try. I definitely, with 4 people, I think you might have an easier time managing these mobs. So poor Midori and Shock are struggling here a little bit, but just trying to wait for Robin to get in there so that everybody gets the rewards. Definitely, if you have one really strong OP player, you don't want them destroying these mobs too quickly. You want everybody to get in who can, because I think the rewards will be greatly reduced if you only kill 2 of them. And here we go. And so I'm just sort of giving my team some warnings. You know, I did get a lot of help from my friends telling me how things should go. So like, I think most people took way longer on their first attempt. Most teams trying to figure all this stuff out. I was very lucky because I had a bunch of friends. You know, I couldn't do it on the first day because I couldn't get everybody together. So I got a lot of information before doing this, which I really appreciate. Kind of glad that we ended up waiting a day and, you know, having everybody sort of make the mistakes for us so that I got lots of information. So here we're still split up into 2 groups, so Shock and myself and Midori and Robin. But it's sort of like a world boss that the damage goes down incrementally, so it's not as responsive to when we deal damage. But so each side gets its own set of win mobs. So Robin and Midori also have a set of win mobs that are like the mobs we just saw that they have to defeat. But as far as the boss goes, we're dealing a group pool of damage to it. So you definitely want to deal as quickly as possible. The bosses do tend to have more buffs as you go on, and so you want to clear them out as quickly as possible. So those mobs again have wind damage. I was having a hard time figuring out what elements these bosses are, so if you guys know, please share, and I'll tell Cosmos to put it in the blog, and I'll try and, you know, put it somewhere on, you know, within the comments or within the description for this video. You know, I want as much information out for this dungeon as possible. These rewards are so great. Everybody deserves to be able to get them as much as possible and get lots of free stuff and be in good shape, and so I'm really hoping that people share as much information about this as possible. I don't think it's worth it to, you know, be stingy about information in the game. Anyway, and so second boss is honestly the easiest of the bunch, or I shouldn't say second boss. What's the name of this guy? Mosaeus? Sure. Anyway, the Scorpion is the easiest boss of the 3. From the 2 times that I've done this dungeon, I did another attempt after this one with a different group, and I got this. We got the Cyclops first again, which I think is probably standard. I think he's always going to be the first boss. But the second time we went, we got the Scorpion as the 3rd boss actually. So the next one is this big electro shieldy guy, and he's much harder to deal with. So this Scorpion is not too bad at all. I'm sure he might get nastier if you let him, you know, if you drag on. So you want to deal as much damage as quickly as possible. The more you dawdle, the nastier these bosses get. Shock seems alright. I was a little bit concerned about those wind mobs at the beginning for for Midori and Robin, but turns out that they managed to get through those alright. I think it's because they came 2 at a time that it wasn't as bad for them. So Midori and Robin are actually still alive at this point. It's a little bit strange to just see 2 of us, so yeah, it's a different sense of coordination with these bosses for sure. And so this big skull guy is actually pretty nasty. I didn't realize it during this run how mean he actually is because we were dealing so much damage. So Robin was dealing a ton of damage. She's a big archer, so we were able to deal a lot. So if you have a team that's really OP, the key to this is just don't let it hit you too much. But I actually got this boss second on the attempt that I did after this, and it was really nasty. It puts this bleed at the bottom, which are those little scratch marks, and if you let those stack up too much, they can be very mean. So you don't want to see this guy second. I think it's better to see him third because the bleeds can carry over to the next boss if you let them. But that's another 50 for each of the materials to make the red gear, plus 200 stoves and hammers. So really just beautiful rewards. That said, I'm still glad that the MP is only once a week because it's a lot of work, and I feel like I'll be running around with a lot of people doing this. But a big thank you to my group. I wanted to show their stats. I don't think Robin's potted here. If she did, she put like a power pot on at most, maybe once she hit those win mobs when she was struggling a bit. Midori is just under 2 million BR. She said that she put a I think like an Intel pot or something like that on, and then Shock is also at 2 million BR, and she didn't pot up at all. I also didn't pot up, so definitely with a group that's lower BR than us that pots up a bit, I think you can fuddle around and make it through this MP no problem, as long as you pick the right resistances and try and gather up your strategy, balance out your team as carefully as possible. And so full rewards for completing the MP, mine are a tad bit higher because I did do a couple extra of the win mobs. So if you have 2 sides that complete those at the same time, then you're gonna have a few less of the red gear Holy Forge items. But so 226, so almost half a piece of red gear upgrading materials, and then 600 hammers, that's huge, 600 stoves, and then you can make up for the stoves that would be needed to match up with the hammers through, I guess it's Whole Boss or something like that, so I have a bunch of those saved up, and then a bunch of the red gear Holy Forge materials. So these rewards are fantastic. So thanks for watching, you guys, and thank you to all the people who have been helping me with so much with information. So it really made this a lot easier knowing what was going to be happening, and please share any tips and tricks, and we'll post them up to Dolly Games Wartune blog. I think Cosmos is going to make as comprehensive of a blog post as possible to help with this MP, and so I hope this video paired up with that is going to be able to help a bunch of groups get through. Please don't be stingy with information. I think it's best to just share this stuff. Everybody should be getting these materials and going through this MP if they can. So thank you very much for watching. Take care and have a very good day.